Lynn is going to start us out and introduce you to WOW in case anybody doesn't know who we are.
Who doesn't know who we are? Anybody not know who WOW is? Wow. Wow. So my name is Lynn Shoemaker, and sometimes called Lynn Troublemaker. And I am a founding member of WOW Women Organizing for Wilmington. And it started 6.5 years ago, and it was formed in my backyard. It was a handful of concerned progressive women who were very upset that the county commissioners had refused an unencumbered grant by then Governor Bev Perdue to provide IUDs for women on a waiting list at our health department. Unencumbered meant that we weren't going to have to match that grant. Essentially, it was free money for women to finally get birth control that they could use. And some women can't take oral contraceptives for a myriad of reasons. But apparently our county commissioners at the time didn't understand that. And one of those commissioners at the time was Ted Davis, who actually said, quote, "Women wouldn't need the pill if they just wouldn't have the sex," end quote. That man is currently in the House of Representatives for our state, and now he is adversely affecting more women than just those in our county. No! And we have a responsibility to vote him out. Vote him out! Vote him out! Vote him out! Vote him out! Women Organizing for Wilmington has been on the steps of City Hall for 86 consecutive weeks. We've been there in rain, blistering sun, snow, an ice storm, a hurricane. We were there on Christmas Day. We were there on New Year's Day. We've been appealing to women via street theater, with concise protest signs and social media. And we've been appealing to women who otherwise would not have time to be aware of how politics are affecting their lives, because they are so busy working 2 and 3 part-time jobs, earning poverty wage, paying off debilitating student loans. They go home after working their poverty wage jobs and they take care of their children. They try to stretch their bread and egg and milk and cheese to the next paycheck to keep a roof over their children's heads, keep food on the table, and they fall asleep at night and they drool on their pillows, they're so tired, and they get up and they go back and they start over the next day. And some of those women aren't here today because they work on weekends. A Saturday is no different than a Tuesday. And those were the women that we were trying to appeal to during that 86 weeks. There are the women who can't afford to miss a day of work. They go to work sick. There are the women who are afraid to miss a day of work because they don't have any rights. They could be terminated from their jobs. These are women of color who are marginalized and suppressed every day just because the color of their skin is different from that of white privilege. But women standing united, women together, can change that. We have to stand united, and historically, we haven't. But that changes, And that can change today. It can start today. Who has the power? What kind of power? I say women, you say power. Women. 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 Don't think that today didn't happen without a struggle. There has never been a women's movement without opposition. But I am here today to tell you that women are stronger than men. And I have never been more sure of this than I am today. When the orange man who tweets at 3 o'clock in the morning and incites violence was coronated, the day after the election, I stayed in bed in my pajamas and I cried. And then my sister called me that night and reminded me that months earlier we had bought tickets to Dance Aloris. And we decided we had to pull ourselves up by our proverbial bootstraps and go to support the arts. There is nothing as soothing as a group of artists confronting life with art. That is what that big baby out front is, satirical art. And art doesn't back down. Artists don't back down. Art is not afraid. But when your own people ask you not to fly the blimp because they're afraid it might poke the sleeping bear and wake it up to go out and vote against us, I say, the conservatives have done an excellent job of waking up their base and keeping them awake. They're already at the polls. And the only way we can wake up our base is to be loud and to be bold. I love that about this administration, and it's the only thing I love about this administration, is that it has released women to say what's on their mind, to allow women to be bold. Some examples. This baby Trump wasn't my idea. This baby Trump came from a soft-spoken, sweet woman who never wants to rock the boat. She went through all the hoops to get it here because she went to the rally, a day of immigration, and stood with our immigrant women and children when a big pickup truck, there's another pickup truck, plowed by and coal-rolled children. And it was at that moment that she said she realized she had a duty, because of the color of her skin, to fight back. And that is why that piece of art is out front there now. We have women who are utilizing skills from the kitchen for the resistance. We have an artist's wife who, when he goes to his studio, sneaks paint out the back door for protest signs. We have a contractor's wife who is buying supplies that we need from the hardware store on his account. And at the printers, when I was getting the pink ballots printed, while I was standing there waiting for the clerk, a woman, to find the email I had sent her, a white man came in and demanded service immediately, stepping in front of me. And there was a time when I would have stood there quietly and rolled my eyes, but I didn't this time. And I said, "Excuse me, sir, but this is my time." And when it was time to pay, she winked and said, "Consider it my contribution to the cause." We are everywhere. We are at work, in the grocery store, we're sitting next to you in the church, we're in the waiting room at your doctor's office, we're performing surgery in the OR. We're waiting tables, we're doing medical exams, we're defending you in court, we are even sitting on the bench in the courtroom. We are everywhere. Never be afraid, women. Always be bold. We have some fabulous speakers and musicians here today, and I'd like to thank Laura, who started us out in Calamity. And again, remind you that every Monday, no matter what the weather is, WOW is at the courthouse at the corner of Thalian from 12 to 1. And if you don't have time to make a sign, we have extras. You don't have to stay the whole time. But I'm going to tell you what, when women vote in block, it reminds people that women make a difference and that we have power. And when a lot of women stand on a corner united and speak out loud, it reminds them that we're still here and we're still fighting and we are not giving up.
All right, thank you, Lynn. Okay, everybody don't forget we do have buses available to any of those of you who want to go to the polls this afternoon. If you haven't voted, forget the vote. Okay, so next up we have Miss Francine DeCourcy. So Francine, you know, we can't have this rally without her. Lynn was just speaking about the arts, and she is one of our queens in Wilmington of the art scene. She's long been a leading force in the continuation of the NC film and TV industry and in the independent film movement. She initiated and helped launch NC Visions, a PBS TV show of North Carolina independent filmmakers, which ran for 20 years. Her Women United and Calling All Colors demonstrates her commitment to empowering women and cultural diversity in the media and the power of media for social change. Let's welcome Francine. Come and talk to us a little bit.
Wow. Wow to all of you for taking your time today to come out. Wow to WOW. And thank you, Lynn Shoemaker, and all the women and supporters of WOW for all of your commitment and advocacy and protest for the past 86 weeks to stand up and speak out and advocate for the issues that impact all of us, not only in the city, but in the state and in the country. What an impact you've made. Give yourself and men a rousing round of applause. Speaking of impact, film has the power to make dramatic impact. I chose media production and motion picture, television, and film as my chosen career because I saw it had the potential to reach masses of people, and especially if you were fortunate enough, like I have been, to work on projects that had some social redeeming value. Not all of them do. But because of North Carolina's film and television industry, I've been able to be selected and work on hundreds of films, documentaries, and television productions that had that opportunity to speak truth to power, to make an impact. And so I have chosen projects to work on that address issues that I felt strongly about. Domestic violence, racial reconciliation, sustainable living, and have been graced to be able to be selective in working on those projects. But I could not have worked on even documentary film without the infrastructure that we have spent 35 years building here in North Carolina to build a major motion picture complex. We have been, until recently, the envy of every city in the state, every state in the country, and every country in the world, because we had a world-class motion picture community that has, in the past 35 years, been known as the third largest film producing city in the country, and we also have produced 800 films in North Carolina, 400 in Wilmington alone, to the impact of $8 billion and as much as $150 million a year in Wilmington alone. That's an impact, and you best believe that the community has felt it when it went away. And our current legislature made a decision that made it all go away. The motion picture industry in North Carolina created over 1,400 lifelong careers, not short-term jobs, lifelong careers, for families who have depended on it for their livelihood, who have now had to move to Georgia or California or South Carolina, or travel and leave their families behind to go find work. Not fair. We've got to vote this current legislature out and bring our film industry back. In addition to those 1,400 lifelong careers, there have been tens of thousands of part-time jobs for cast and crew and background extras. I did extras casting for years, and I've cast as many as 20,000 people on one movie and paid them $100 a day. That's a substantial impact. So the loss of that has been dramatically felt. Plus, there's all the support vendors that have moved here and built brick and mortar shops, lighting and grip, casting, motion picture vehicles, catering companies. Then, every business you can think of is impacted by the film industry. Hardware stores, lumber yards, office supplies, car rentals, hotels, paint shops, caterers, restaurants, everything you can think of, for the most part, is impacted by the film industry. I remember a grocery store manager telling me one time, "Boy, I sure miss you guys being here, because when they'd have 3 movies here, every one of them would come in here with about 10 carts, because they had to feed 100 crew and 1,000 extras, and they would just buy everything on the shelves." They felt the impact, and they're not feeling it now. Not to mention tourism. You know, One Tree Hill just had a convention here last week, one of many they've had over the decades. And over 1,000 young people came and stayed in our hotels, ate in our restaurants, shopped in our shops. That impact continues even though the show's been gone for 8 years. Dawson's Creek was one of the first fan-based websites. To this day, the Commission of Business Bureau puts out handouts to show people where Dawson and Jody and Pacey walked along the Riverwalk. So those people still come. I ran the studio tours for a while, and I had sometimes as many as 100 people a tour 4 times a weekend from France, from Sweden, from Vietnam, coming here to tour the sites. So it has a residual long-term impact. And we want to see it come back. In addition, there's a philanthropic element. You know, One Tree Hill used to do fundraisers, basketball games and such, and to raise money for various charities. I personally worked on projects like Sleeping with an Enemy that did a fundraiser for the domestic violence shelter. We did projects for the Stop the Savoy, gave 5 performing arts scholarships to minorities. Simple Justice gave money to United Way. When actors came to town like Nick Nolte and Paul Newman and Pat Hingle and Linda Lavin, they would do master classes and teach the next generation of actors and filmmakers. When Frank Capra came to town, he helped build the UNCW and Cape Fear Community College film and video program. They are continuing to turn out brilliant students. And so now an independent film community has arisen, and they're telling their own stories. We have, as a result, film festivals that are prolific in town. Cucaloris comes up next month, from the 8th to the 13th. 400 films generally shown. There's the North Carolina Black Film Festival, the Jewish Film Festival, and I see some of my friends from the Chick Flicks Film Festival that we created a few years ago to celebrate women in film. And women in film are starting to really tell their own stories, and let's face it, we have stories to tell, don't we? We have lots of stories to tell. And one of those is one that's near and dear to my heart that has caused the birth of the Me Too movement. And Time's Up. As a survivor of sexual abuse, I feel strongly about finding a way for us to use the media to tell our stories so we can begin to heal, so we can become aware, so we can reach out to people, not only to the women, but to the men who often are the perpetrators and often victims, so that we can come to understand the lifelong impact this kind of abuse has on people. We've got to change people. We've got to change one heart at a time. And I'm convinced that the power of film has the ability to do that. As I said, and she said in my introduction, I've led a charge called Women United and Calling All Colors to gather people together to learn to tell their stories so that they can indeed use the media to make an impact. But right now, the impact is with you. You will make the impact because you need to vote. How many of you voted? Great. Okay, well if you voted, how many of you are willing to help work the polls? Raise your hand. See me after. I'm signing up poll workers. So after, but I'm serious. I need poll workers because we've got tons of people coming to the polls between now and election day. So when you see me sitting down here, come talk to me. I'll put you to work. We do 3-hour shifts between now and November 3rd and then shifts on election day. So please, we need your help. You are the power. Not just women, we are the power, but we need the men behind us as well. It's all about all of us. We're one race, the human race, and we need each other. But we are not going to succeed until we join hands, we join hearts, and we join minds. And together, we can each individually and collectively make a dramatic impact. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting me be here. Go vote and go work the polls. Thank you very much.
Francine, she's one of my favorite tellers of stories. She does a great job in her film and speaking, obviously. Appreciate you being here. Okay, let's keep it. Okay, we'll keep it rolling. Next we have Kaylin Coons. Let me pull up I'm so sorry. Okay, Kaylin Kuhn is a senior at Harvard High School. She's worked widely with the LBG community as well as March for Our Lives, which started in February of this year. She's the Director of Planning and Logistics for MFOL, and she works hard in her school and community to help improve people's lives and ensure their safety. And you're speaking today with March for Our Lives, right? Come on over, babe. Everybody welcome Kaylin.
I'm with March for Our Lives, and I have a planned speech. But before I go on with that, I'd like to mention the mass shooting that actually just happened about an hour ago in Pittsburgh, the Tree of Life Synagogue. 8 people were killed, others were shot. The gunman is in custody, but injured, and also 2 police officers were shot during this ordeal. This is such an awful way to open what I'm here to talk about. What I'm here to talk about is awful to begin with. And I'm just so sad that I get to give a live example of why I'm here. Okay, so now that that's kind of over. Okay, so there's a clock that sits in the front of my English 4 classroom. It reminds me of the clock that used to hang in my grandmother's living room that doesn't chime anymore. I
I think I'm bringing this up because we had a lockdown drill today, and maybe I'm relating things because it brings me a comfort that I didn't find in that moment. I was in the corner on the floor of the classroom with people I don't know and people who don't know me. Relating a ticking that is always there, but I've never heard before, this type of quiet, to the clock that hangs in my dead grandmother's living room brought me more comfort than being in school at that moment. This makes it personal. This became personal after politicians found that the blood does lie on their hands and also figured out that the money they receive from the NRA will sop it up anyway. While we are being left with the mop and the tissues, our representatives are pushing for laws that are indeed beneficial, but only for their bank accounts. And if it comes down to it, when it comes down to it, who they represent is a pay grade below them, and they don't get paid for what they consider charity. In America, it is reported a mass shooting happens every day. Looking at 155 shootings, 1,107 people were killed. 299 guns were used, in which 168 of them were obtained legally, all of this done by 149 shooters. These are alone the biggest mass shootings from 1968 through 2018. These numbers don't include people killed by gunshots that are not part of a classified mass shooting that happens every day. Since we are students, the feeling of fear of possible mass shootings in our schools is prominent. And it is easy to forget that a child or mother or adult will be shot and killed walking home or leaving their front door. It's hard to imagine fear that you've never felt, but if humans weren't able to empathize, none of us would be where we are today. I'm not here to convince anyone that guns are bad. I am here to tell you how myself and a lot of others feel, and maybe that will spark something in you. If politicians like Rouser and Trump won't protect their kids, the kids will protect themselves with a force no one has ever seen before. We aren't fighting for a cause. We are fighting for the lives of our friends and our little brothers and sisters who won't always have someone there to protect them. We are fighting for what's ours and what's important, our lives. We, the people, are women, men, and everything in between. We are blue collar, white collar, homeless, and hungry. We, the people, can vote, and if we can't, we'll bring double the amount of people to fill our slot. We teach that you don't have to have violence to fight violence. Our rebellion is our ballot, and I promise this is the only military-grade weapon that anyone ever really needs. What an amazing young woman. If she's this powerful now, imagine like, a few more years, she's going to keep growing and growing and growing. It's pretty amazing. Okay, so our next speaker is one of my favorite people. It's a real treat to have her here. We've got Sonia Patrick. She's dedicated her life to fighting for social justice and change within the political, medical, and educational system. She's worked hard to educate the community about the current and historical impact of racism. She remains unrelenting and persevering. God, just love it about her. She currently is a community organizer, holds various offices on the national, state, regional, and county level. And I'm very excited to introduce you to Sonia. Come on up, man.
How's everybody? Are you ready for a change, or are you ready to be the change? Are you ready to take back this country and this state? Are you satisfied with the current administration? That's what I want to hear. It's an honor to be here today. My name is Sonia Patrick. I am the daughter of a disabled veteran. And my daddy risked his life for the constitutional right to stand up for what's right. So when we have an administration that says you can't practice your First Amendment right, we have a big problem. When we our babies not safe in school, and our president says, well, let's arm the instructors, we have a problem. When education is not a priority among our state representatives, and our women's rights, and our family and our children's rights, we got a problem. But we're here today, we're part of the solution. We are part of the solution. It's not time to give up, it's time to stand up. And we will resist. When they attack our children, we will. When they attack our women's rights, we will. When they attack our human rights, we will. We will vote, we will. When they deny our constitutional First Amendment right, we will. When they deny our clean water, we will. Resist. The president can't do anything without the Congress and Senate. We all know that. That's why we're going to get to the polls. We're not only going to change it from the top, we're going to change it from the root. Because we will resist in 2016, because we're not going to wait for a change. We here today will be the change. Thank you for listening.
Next up, we have Delthea Simmons. It's another one of my favorite people. She is one of our local celebrities. She was reared in Washington, D.C. and North Carolina. She's a social activist, community organizer, blogger, freelance speaker, as in today, actress, singer, storyteller, writer, and editor. She serves as Social Action Committee co-chair for the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Wilmington, and as an artist in residence teaching performing arts at the Unitarian Universalist Summer Camp at Shelter Neck near Burgaw. Her social media handle is Wordsmith of Wilmington, and she's one of my favorite people to follow on Facebook because she's constantly dropping some truth. So everybody, please welcome Delthea Simmons.
How y'all are? How y'all are? You know, sometimes people get deaf in Washington, so you have to talk really loud. But luckily, I'm Nora's daughter, so I can talk really loud. Shut up, phone. I'm going to read to you a few things today. And I'm going to start with a poem that was inspired by one of the candidates we had running here. He didn't make it through the primaries, Mr. James Middleton. But he's going to run again, so it's okay. Let me just read it, you tell me what you think. I dream a candidate. I dream a candidate, not perfect, but purposed. Not cruel, but committed. Not cowardly, but careful. Not predatory, but passionate. Not saintly, but steadfast. I dream a candidate who puts people before party, doers before donors, dreamers before schemers, the needy before the greedy, the right and wrong of weak and strong, with justice in the balance long and mercy on the judge's bench. I dream a candidate not beholden but benevolent, a Robin Hood would do me good, with just enough larceny of heart and guile of wit to be nobody's fool. A rough-cut jewel, pretty to look at but impossible to break. A voice like angels that rolls like thunder. Stand with us when you can, stand for us when we can't, and always stand on principle, propriety, but not above this side of the law chicanery to get the greater good. I dream a candidate. How many of y'all are familiar with Reverend William Ball? But the Bible teaches us that what we do here is not a political thing. It's not an economic thing. It's a moral thing. So I'm going to ask you about a thing too much to ask. Is it a thing too much to ask that in a world of plenty, no one go hungry? Is it a thing too much to ask that in a country conceived in liberty, no one suffer captivity? Is it a thing too much to ask that in cities with empty buildings, no one go unsheltered? Is it a thing too much to ask in spaces filled with abundancy, no one suffers scarcity? It is the demand of justice. It is the prayer of love. It is the way to the salvation of the species. This is our call. We hear to our redemption or ignore to our damnation. This last piece is called On Being Women. Because sometimes we gotta get serious. It's fun to have rallies, it's fun to do a lot of stuff, but we have to keep in mind exactly what it means to be a woman in America. And sometimes it ain't pretty. Being a woman is not a game. It is not about pussy hats, not about cute t-shirts, not about ironic or sarcastic memes. Being a woman is serious. It's not about a one-day strike. It's not about chanting 77 cents. It's not about a few women taking a day's leave from work while most women dare not leave work for a day. Being a woman is hard. It's not about marching once and going home. It's not about selfies with celebrities on the National Mall. It's not about feeling inspired and proud and clapping hands and rocking bodies with arms locked to an old Negro spiritual. Being a woman is continuous. Being a woman is work. It's about walking a gauntlet of catcalls and grabbing hands just to make it through a shift at work. It's about secondhand stores and overrun bins and patches on patches for you so that your kids can look decent at school. It's pleading with bill collectors and rent collectors and tax collectors for more time because your boss can't seem to find the money that is your worth. It's being sick and tired of being sick and tired and risking the job you have to organize for the job you need. It's about jobs 2 and 3 that are not for extra money, but for I need every damn dime to get through the week money. It's about working sick, working hurt, running to the car on break to check on your kids because there was no money for childcare this week. It's about running after buses every day. It's about surveillance cameras and locker searches and peeing in a cup. It's about tears and fears and singing dirges and church and torch songs and every melody turned to the blues searching for a deliverance gospel. Being a woman is hard and scarring and scary and serious business. And yet, women rise with every dawn and love on their kids and hug on their lovers and work on their jobs and laugh loud and draw crowds and find hidden joy even in the sorrow and never lose hope of tomorrow. And we live on, live on, live on. Now let me say just one more thing. We're going to be telling you to vote. Voting is very important. Voting is necessary. But it doesn't end with the vote. Okay? That's day 1. Day 2, you lobby. You protest. You speak out. You make sure that the people we elect do what we want to give us what we need. And that way we can pass on to our children the lives the current administration wants to take away. Thank you very much.
Don't be a everybody. Thank you for all that. Our our next much anticipated guest is our own liberal redneck. We've got Miss Celia Rivenbar. By the way, we're just calling her Celia now, just to let you know that. So she has been an outspoken and sometimes reviled redneck liberal in a land where such equality makes her stand out like a ham hock in hummus. I like that. Yep. Although she has found more liberal friends since moving to Wilmington, she's never far in her mind and heart from her rural roots. She's fulfilled a lifelong dream of writing a political humor column in 2016, following decades working as a news reporter, book author, and playwright. Her column is syndicated across the United States and draws the ire of humor-impaired Republicans across this great land. So I'm super excited. Thank you, Celia. Come on up. Thank you so much.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for coming out today. I don't know about y'all, but there was just no way I was going to miss a chance to have my picture taken with the Trump baby. It looks just like him, doesn't it? The Trump baby, just like its namesake, is a swollen, gutless bag of hot air that likes to look down upon the rest of us. I only wish there was a matching Pence balloon with us today, because as much as I loathe the policies of Donald Trump, Pence is the one that scares the hell out of me as a woman. He calls his wife mother. He will not attend social gatherings without his wife present, and we're supposed to think that makes him virtuous? What kind of perv is scared of how he'll act if he's in the room without his wife to police his behavior? What kind of arrogant fake Christian thinks women are just a bunch of Jezebels out to get them? I mean, besides Brett Kavanaugh. What is Mike Pence so afraid of? Oh, that's right. He's afraid of women because we're not going away. The Republicans want to legislate us into submission, but we're not going to let them, are we? As disastrous as the Trump administration has been and continues to be, the one good thing to come of it is that we are witnessing the largest surge of women running for office in the history of America. Women across this great nation are turning what I call our collective fed-uppedness into political action. Latest polls show that between 30 and 40 women who have never run for any political office before are favored to win election to the U.S. House of Representatives and the Senate come November 6th. And here's the best part, y'all. These women, they look like America. Not Trump's entitled white male America, but the real America. The America that includes women and people of color and richly diverse religions and cultures. It is time to vote out the worms. Y'all know what the worms are? White old Republican men. Get them gone, y'all. Get them gone. The worms need to burrow into a hole and stay there. Because you know that's where they're comfortable, in the dark, in the dirt. They hate the light. It kills them. It robs them of their energy. It makes them shrivel up and die. Let's be the light that drives them so far into the ground they won't ever come back. That's my America. That's my South. That's my Wilmington. A place for light and hope and justice. Let the white old Republican men stay in the darkness while we speak out for a brighter tomorrow that focuses on the important issues that real families face every day. Health care for all, living wages, expanded voter rights, immigrant rights, support for public education, and the LGBTQ community. Let's not spend one more election cycle letting the worms hijack the very important conversations about the future of our state and nation by passing discriminatory laws and telling us who can marry whom or which bathroom we have to use, or who's going to bake our wedding cake, or when that army of scary brown and black folk are going to come after us. We don't have time for that racist garbage, that fear-mongering foolishness. We are done with that. We have a lot of work to do between now and 2020. The midterms are our chance to right the ship. Anybody who hoped Trump wouldn't be as bad for women learned just 10 days into his administration that he would be when the brilliant Sally Yates was scuttled to make way for Jeff Sessions. Talk about going from chicken salad to chicken shit. And it has gotten worse every single day since. It is almost Halloween, and I'll tell you what's scarier than any ghosts or goblins is the North Carolina General Assembly. They're a scary bunch. We are so fortunate to have the wonderful Deb Butler in Raleigh speaking out for what is right and fair and safe for our state. When I travel across North Carolina, I am often told by voters in Charlotte and Raleigh and Greensboro and points in between how grateful they are to have Deb's voice of reason in the worm farm that is Raleigh. Let's do all we can to keep her there, and let's send Leslie Cohen and Marsha Morgan to join her. Let us show the rest of this state that yes, we have an abundance of intelligent, principled women in eastern North Carolina who know how to get shit done. And y'all, for the love of all that's holy, let us send Dr. Kyle Horton to Congress. Now, she may have to spend the first few days dusting the cobwebs off David Rouser's phone. It is apparently broken because he damn sure doesn't respond to our concerns about sensible gun laws, clean water and air, reproductive rights. Dr. Kyle, on the other hand, is a healer, and I am ready for her to lay hands on the halls of Congress. She is someone we can be proud to send to Washington. Her agenda is as honest and forthright as she is. She understands things Rouser simply cannot, things like the science of climate change and how a woman's body works. I know I don't have to point out that Harper Peterson deserves our support for NC Senate, or that Julia Bozeman and Rob Zapple deserve our votes for New Hanover County Commission. Rob and Julia have worked hard for our county for many years. Rob, who is currently on the board, perhaps makes a supreme sacrifice because he has to spend so many nights in the company of Republican County Commission Chairman Woody White. Woody is like a poor man's Lindsey Graham. That seersuckered southern gentleman who, when opposed by a strong woman, tends to shift down into the kind of hissy fit that calls to mind a rabid possum. Not long ago, Woody took me to task on Facebook for using salty and inappropriate language. He does not understand what we all know. Well-behaved women seldom make history. Now, speaking of ancient history, how about we get rid of those Republicans on the New Hanover County School Board? Don Hayes. They had been on there so long, I think the first time they won, they celebrated by planting the early oak. Vote instead, y'all, for Judy and Elena and Stephanie and Nelson, an impressive, qualified slate. Let's get rid of the Republican majority whose main goal is to resegregate the public schools using the code speak of neighborhood schools. Don't forget that when it comes to the audacious power grab those worms in the General Assembly are making by asking you to vote for 6 amendments to our Constitution, let your mantra be nix the 6 and spread the word. Just as their dear leader Donald Trump is doing at the top of the ticket, the bottom feeders want to take the power away from we the people. These amendments represent a blatant power grab by the deplorables working on that worm farm. It may not always feel like it, but I honestly think we have them on the ropes, y'all. I beg of you, do not give up hope. Stay strong, speak out, vote, volunteer to drive others to vote, unless they're Republicans, in which case you can just take them for a long ride in the country. You know, the young folks have a wonderful word these days to describe whether or not someone is keyed into how the world really is. It's called being woke. We need to leave out of here with a commitment to ourselves and to each other that we will get woke and stay woke. Recently, one of my personal heroes, the Reverend William Barber, mentioned earlier, possibly the most woke human being on the planet, was awarded a MacArthur Genius Grant. When asked what he was going to do with that $625,000 grant, Reverend Barber pledged to use it to shed light in the dark places, to bring hope and healing and a blueprint for a better life. As a matter of fact, Reverend Barber was notified that he had won the award while he was being held in custody for protesting on behalf of low-wage workers. You know, a lot of people will talk about little d democratic principles as opposed to big D Democrat, meaning our party label. To my mind, they are one and the same. Let's follow Reverend Barber's lead and recommit here and now to doing little DDs with our big D hearts. Finally, the next time you hear the expression women were given the right to vote, remember that's not entirely true. We were not given the right to vote, we fought and died for it. I am overjoyed to tell y'all that my daughter is here with me today. She is 21 and she is a progressive Democrat and she is a voter. Today, I challenge her generation to hit the streets and fill those ballot boxes. We've done this for years, and while we're not ready to pass the torch, we sure could use some help from the young'uns to hold that torch high. Something tells me they're more than up to the task, because from where I sit, they appear to be solidly woke. Thank y'all so much.
That was a treat and hilarious. Celia Mark, everybody, or just Celia. Okay, next up, we have another awesome speaker. We have Vanessa Gonzalez. She's an immigration attorney, mother, volunteer, and activist. She obtained her bachelor's of science in both political science and Spanish from UNCP, then went on to get her Juris Doctor from UNC Chapel Hill. She has devoted her career to immigration law ever since. She opened her own firm here in Wilmington in 2014. She actively volunteers in her community through the YWCA's after-school program at CLO, which we all love, Lawyers for Literacy program at Snipes, which we all love, Gregory Freeman Elementary, and is on the board of Soaring as Eagles. She's taught a course on immigration law and policy at UNCW, and is a speaker in their Women on Wednesdays Luncheon Learning series. Sorry, there's a lot of alliteration in there. I keep hearing her name all around town, being an activist, and I'm so excited to have met her today. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. If I look tired, it's because I was in my office till midnight last night, and I've been there since 9 a.m. this morning. And I told my client that he needed to give me about a half-hour break so I could come here and speak to you all today. And then I got to rush back to finish knocking out his affidavit, because thanks to one of the administration's very sudden changes in immigration policy about a week and a half ago, that client and several of my other clients' medical exams that were to be valid for a year will no longer be valid if not received by Thursday. So it's a busy weekend for me, and I didn't plan for that, but I'm still here, and my clients are supportive of me being here, so I got a little break to be here with you. So I was asked to come here today to speak about immigration law and policy, and specifically how it's changed under the current administration, and provide you guys some insider perspective from what I know outside of what it is that you see and hear on the news. As my introduction stated, I've been practicing immigration law for about 7 years as a licensed attorney. Before that, I was practicing in doing internships and pro bono work, specifically in immigration law for 3 years as a law student at UNC. So at this point, I've got about a decade's worth of experience and exposure to immigration law and policy that's allowed me to bear witness to how it affects people's real daily lives and our communities. As you can imagine, out of the decade I've been working in immigration law, the last 2 years have been markedly different and increasingly difficult, but not just for me and other immigration practitioners, more so for those who are directly affected, undocumented folk, and people who are living here lawfully but not in status as a citizen, as well as their family members. And while those who are being targeted, these non-citizens of the US, feel the direct effect of Trump's attacks, make no mistake that these attacks affect all of us, and our communities, and our economy, and our humanity. Immigrants' rights issues are human rights issues. They're civil rights issues. And to ignore what's happening under the current administration is willful blindness. It's complicity to the human rights violations and legalized ethnic cleansing that's being carried out by our government. A government that's supposed to represent us. That's why today's event and our conversations here today and our voice in the voting booth today is so important. Now, I could read out a list of all of the anti-immigrant policies and proposals and rhetoric that's come out of the White House since 2016, but you guys will be here a lot longer than you'd want to be, and I need folks to get bused to the polls. I tried to do that recently in a presentation at a Spanish service learning class at UNCW about a week ago, and it took the better part of 15 minutes, and I still didn't finish. But it's important to note that Trump and his cabinet haven't just targeted undocumented individuals for deportation. They're also actively looking to take away lawful status from those legally living here in some sort of documented status already, and placing obstacles in the way of those attempting to get lawful status that are so big that it scares most people into even trying anymore. You guys are all very aware, I'm sure, that the administration time and time again has targeted Muslims with their repeated Muslim bans. This has caused perpetual separation of families, and even US citizens continue to be unable to reunite with their own spouses and children if they're seeking visas in these affected countries. I hope most of you are aware that the administration has canceled TPS, temporary protected status, for several countries. And all the name includes temporary, it's really been anything but that, as most countries designated for TPS have been so since the 90s. And most of my clients with TPS have been living here in the United States since I was born. And since the 90s, they've been paying year after year to register themselves with TPS. They've been keeping squeaky clean records because you get kicked out of the TPS program at the very second simple misdemeanor. They've got US citizen children, they own businesses, they own property, they employ us, they are our employees. And this rug has been pulled out from underneath them by the current administration, and they're just expected to abandon their entire lives and go back to countries that are facing, by and large, extreme poverty and overwhelming violence, a lot of which is caused by our own international policy. Similarly, as you all know, Trump terminated DACA last year, leaving hundreds of thousands of youth in the unfair position of facing deportation. After telling them, hey, you can step out of the shadows, register yourself, provide your information, keep paying to keep your DACA active every 2 years, to rip the rug out from under them, and then potentially place them in deportation. As you may also know, due to a couple federal lawsuits, DACA sort of lives on in a state of legal purgatory where those that are in the DACA program can continue to renew their status. However, the rest of the program has been discontinued. So this means that those who maybe were 14 and eligible for DACA before Trump made the announcement last year in September, now that they're 15, they can't register even though they're eligible. Only those that still have DACA can renew. It also took away and continues to take away, despite the current lawsuits, the ability to travel on advanced parole and get travel permits if you have DACA. Previously, folks with DACA, since it started in 2012, could ask for travel permits to re-enter the United States after going to their countries for a humanitarian reason, like a dying or sick relative. I specifically, right now, have a DACA client who's terminally ill, and her doctor won't put her on the organ donor list, although she needs a transplant. And the doctor told her because she doesn't have a permanent lawful status, and as you know, DACA folks, well, you may not know, DACA folks aren't eligible for marketplace insurance, just like they're not eligible in most states for in-state tuition or any type of financial aid. She was told that she'd have to return to the country she left as a baby to get her life-saving surgery. But because Trump canceled the better part of the DACA program last year, she can't do that and then come back in on advanced parole. So when it really gets down to it, she has to decide whether she's going to try to get on a list and get surgery or die. That means she has to leave and never come back. As for other DACA students, same as those with TPS. They've done a lot of investing. You give someone a work permit, a social, and the ability to go to a 4-year university, what happens? They take out student loans, mostly private student loans, because a lot of them are being considered out-of-state students and don't have access to federal aid. Start businesses, employ citizens, work for law offices here in Wilmington. And so now they're sitting in a type of purgatory. The administration also has aggressively attacked asylum law. Most specifically, case precedent and policy affecting women and children suffering extreme domestic violence and sexual assault. Jeff Sessions loves that. Jeff Sessions single-handedly has changed this area of law by certifying precedent cases to himself and issuing new decisions that effectively erase the legal basis that we use to try these cases. His desire to diminish asylum law and turn away those legally seeking asylum in our country was the direct cause of parents being separated from their children at the border since his zero-tolerance policy this year in April. And the administration continues to flood the deportation court by increased enforcement with no priorities based on folks' criminal history or specific violations. Also, canceling status for hundreds and thousands of people results in more deportation cases. But they're also going after the low-hanging fruit, reopening cases that were previously administratively closed for folks that had no criminal record, that had been here for a very long time, that have citizen relatives, etc. Cases that were closed by their own Department of Homeland Security years ago, they're seeking to reopen. I've got several clients that around 14, 15 were closed out of the court. Now we get notices 3-4 years later that the case is back on the docket out of nowhere. And most of these folks no longer live at that address and won't even find out that they were ordered deported in their absence because they have no way of being notified. They're pushing to set quotas on judges to turn over cases factor despite this growth in the dockets that they've created. They've taken away any semblance of due process that once existed. Before, if someone was in deportation court, but on the other hand, they were applying to get lawful status with Citizenship and Immigration Services, that's mostly what my job was. Some was in deportation, but maybe I could do a family-based petition or a victim-based petition for them. I would show the judge that, hey, they have a pathway to lawful status, and here's what I'm doing about it, and here's their receipt notice, and here's about how long it would take, and judges would give us continuances to see whether they won their case or not with the other branch of DHS. And if they won, well, then the deportation case was moot, and they'd close it. And if they lost, well, they'd continue on, and if the person was removable, then they faced being removed from the United States. Recently, Jeff Sessions issued a decision, matter of Labor, that limits judges' abilities to give continuances, even in these matters. So they're expediting deportations of folks that have pathways to legalize themselves. Usually the only obstacle for the folks getting their status are DHS's own processing time. So think about this. DHS are the prosecutors in removal court. They're the same branch. DHS is who's supposed to be submitting folks' benefits, but in some of these cases their processing times are taking so long. The same department is pushing to deport people based on processing times that are their own fault. Add to all of this, for those folks who are lucky enough to have a case to apply for a green card, the administration's made the stakes so high that many people are afraid to try now. Months ago, DHS has historically changed the policy so that any denied application should result directly in someone being issued a notice to appear in deportation court with a very small limitation for certain humanitarian applications. At the very same time, they changed the policy to allow officers to deny cases without issuing what are called requests for evidence. This is terrifying. This means that if you file an application for any type of benefit, a work permit, a green card, it better be perfect. And if you forget something as simple as a copy of your birth certificate, an officer could, under this memo, this recent memo, deny it, just for the lack of supporting evidence. And then upon that denial, instead of giving you a request for evidence and say, hey, send in your birth certificate, you'll be issued a notice to appear in deportation court. And so, I can speak all day about my client's struggles and my frustrations, but again, you guys would be here way too long. I just need everyone to understand that it is as bad as you probably have feared. And there's a potential for things to get worse if those in power go unchecked and unchallenged. This applies at both the federal and the local level, and this is why we must vote. Attacks on immigrants is not a singular issue, and I refuse to package up my advocacy for immigrants' rights to you in a pretty package about how immigrants positively affect our economy and in turn your pocket, or maybe provide the food on your table, or speak only of the clean-cut DACA valedictorian who's awesome at athletics and in academia. As though these are often good arguments and convincing arguments, they're both dehumanizing and self-centering. You should care about what's happening to immigrants in this country because their human rights are being violated and they're human beings. You must recognize intersectionality and how this administration's policies disenfranchising various marginalized groups are interconnected. Silence is complicity. Let's not be silent, let's be loud. Let's be loud here today, let's be loud at the polls, and let's not let our voices get tired because we still have a long way to go, guys.
Thank you so much, Vanessa and Alex. Thank you for giving her that round of applause too, because she's doing some hard work, and we're so grateful for you and our community, Vanessa. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Miss Sarah Freeby. Sarah was born at Scott Air Force Base in Illinois. She's lived across the United States and actually across the world, including the Philippines. That's given her a more global perspective of the world. Her dad retired from the Air Force in rural Pennsylvania, giving her a down-to-earth perspective. She went to Penn State for secondary education for physics. After a few years of teaching, she went into IT in the private industry so that she could safely transition to her authentic self. Sarah moved to North Carolina in 1996 and has been here ever since. Let's welcome Miss Sarah Freeby.
Hi. I'm Sarah Freeby and I'm a trans woman. And I have a dream. I have a dream that someday I'll be judged by the content of my character and not by the gender designated at my birth. Part of that dream is to become a foster mom for an at-risk LGBT teen who needs a safe place to grow into the person that they want to be. Part of the complications with that is what was recently revealed by the New York Times about the Health and Human Services plan to officially recognize that gender is only the biological sex assigned at birth. Now I have an amended birth certificate from the state of Illinois that attests to my gender, my true gender. The Department of Health and Human Services wants to make that null and void. They want to take the good I want to do in public life null and void. They want to make me and people like me null and void. I need the help of dedicated and compassionate voters like you to do what you're already going to do and vote blue and vote these people who are out to get me and all the other groups out of public life so they can make America great again. I think it was great before they showed up.
Hell yes!
And I want everybody to have a chance. So how did we get here? We could go back to 2012 when Amendment 1 was passed. That's the amendment that put in the Constitution same-sex marriage was outlawed in the North Carolina Constitution. The U.S. Supreme Court stepped up after a lot of protests and a lot of planning by the LGBT community and their allies. And in October of 2014, we got that same-sex marriage became the law of the land. So what is a socially conservative organization like the Family Research Council supposed to do? Find a more vulnerable population, at least in their opinion, to target. And that resulted in them going to the Republican-controlled General Assembly and whispering in Senate President Berger's ear and Speaker Moore's ear and getting HB 2 passed. It was the discrimination against transgender people was the law of the state for an entire year. And I admit that I did some stress eating in that year, so, but the law was repealed by HB 142, and then what happened? President Donald J. Trump, the Trump baby, his secretaries, Betsy DeVos, Ben Carson, and others are trying to make transgender people disappear from public life. They're trying to make them disappear from the military. Veterans who stayed in a closet and served their country are being disrespected. And our active military, who the military officers say, we need these people, they're being disrespected. Oops, my phone. Okay, I'm gonna have to read the rest of this. Let's see. Okay, so one thing I've been noticing is that the best time for these people to pass the legislation is during primaries, during low voter turnout, or during off-year elections. And that's what they're doing with the current 6 North Carolina amendments, nix the 6. But we have to do it together. We all have interest here, and if you don't mind, I like to do something that Reverend Barber did during the Moral Monday protest, and I kind of like to lead the forward together, not one step back. So, forward together, forward together, forward together. Thank you.
Awesome, Sarah Piggy. Thank you so much for that. Forward together, one step back is always one of my favorites. Okay, next up we have Dana Sargent. Dana is, let's see, academically, she earned a BA in journalism from San Diego State University and an MS in environmental sciences policy from the Johns Hopkins University. She serves on the board of directors with Cape Fear River Watch and chairs their advocacy committee. She's an advisory committee member with the North Carolina Coastal Federation and currently serves as the offshore oil coordinator for the Cape Fear chapter of the Surfrider Foundation. She lives here with her husband and they build boats. They have 2 daughters. Thank you, everybody. Let's give Dana a hand.
thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. I'm honored to have been invited by WOW, I think, and I'm super excited to have this platform to thank WOW, Women Organizing for Wilmington, for all they do for our community. They're just a fierce bunch of women, and I'm so grateful that we have them here. So, woo to WOW! So I do environmental communications, and they asked me to speak about something that many of you, probably most of you here, have cared about and do care about. And that's clean water. And the thing is that during this election, we've polled people from across the region, and the number one issue for people in our region is not the economy, it's not jobs, it's clean water for our community. Water, being a primary issue for the majority of voters in our region, that's Republicans, Democrats, Independents, everybody. It makes it so that for us, it's kind of like this bridging issue, and we really need a bridging issue these days. So that, for me, my request to you is to talk to every voter you know, not just your friends. We really have to stop talking to the choir about these things. The politicians and our media, they're doing a really good job of polarizing every single issue because, that helps them. That supports their campaign, it supports the media's bottom line, but it's destroying us. It's destroying our integrity, and it's destroying our country. People with differing political views are not our enemies. They are our neighbors, and it's up to us to speak with respect and share our insight and listen. And we need to stop allowing the media and most of our politicians from conning us into fighting about things that we all care about. We all care about clean water. So I'm requesting that you talk to your neighbors, folks that you are maybe afraid to talk to, and just tell them, hey, you know what? Your party is dirtying up our water. If you care about the water, then you need to learn about what your elected officials have done to it and figure out what the other guys are offering, which is actually clean water. So at this point, the legislators in our office have proved who they're working for. It's not the health and safety of our environment or our public health. It's corporations like Duke, Chemours, and the now Chinese-owned Smithfield Foods. And our river's got enough coal ash and Gen X and hog crap in it to prove that. We've tried with letters, we've tried with meetings, we've tried with the courts to convince this legislature that they need to change their ways, and that's not working. They're not listening. So the only way that we can get this message to them that they need to represent us and not these dirty corporate polluters is to vote them out. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Dana. She's always up for talking about clean water, and I appreciate that. All right. Next up, we have Danny Hoffpower. What an awesome name. Can we just think about that? Hoffpower. She's actually our last speaker, but then we're going to have a bunch more music. I really appreciate everybody sticking around because I know that it's kind of chilly out here. I will let you know that we have a big following on Facebook right now, so we're live on Facebook and everybody's supporting us from out there. Woo-hoo. All right, Danny is the North Carolina field organizer for Planned Parenthood South Atlantic. She oversees all aspects of community outreach including volunteer recruitment, training, supervision, and execution of all civil engagements. Let's see. Sorry, my phone's... Oh, this is an interesting fact. In her free time, she acts as the lead vocalist and guitarist for the politically motivated band High Face Girls. I think that's pretty cool. And that's very cool. And she volunteers her time empowering future rock and roll leaders from Girls Rock NC. Please welcome Danny. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you again for sticking around. I drove all the way from Raleigh this morning to see your beautiful faces, so it's nice to see them. I'm going to use my phone because it's the technology era, and we don't need paper anymore. Save trees. I As marginalized individuals, our whole lives we've been told to speak up or to speak softer, quiet down. We've been intimidated, manipulated, and forced into silence, into biting our tongues, into blood-filled our mouths. And now here we are in 2018, and still some of us are caught in a false narrative. One that was not built for us or by us, but against us. We cannot play into the hand of our oppressors by believing and accepting the narrative that our vote does not count, that we are decidedly defeated before we even decide. Tell me this, if our vote does not matter, why then have so many politicians made and continue to make such a large effort in restricting our votes? Because they know that every election is important in upholding their oppressive agenda. We can win this, but we have to start believing in the power and the strength of our voices and the power of our vote. And we have to start leading our friends and family into that power as well. In a true democracy, where all voices are heard and represented, all people exercise their right to vote. This is just as important in midterm elections as in presidential elections. In fact, your elected federal and state officials influence your everyday life and the policies that hit closest to home. We must engage voters and shift the bounds of power in this country by electing leaders who will stand with and fight for us, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, immigration status, or zip code. Everything is on the line in 2018. From Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court, to the Trump-Pence administration's dangerous policy agenda, the health, rights, and freedom of people of color, young people, the LGBTQ community, immigrants, and women are at risk. The American people are keenly aware of what's on the line and are responding in unprecedented ways. In fact, 1 in 5 people in this country have taken to the streets in protest since Donald Trump came into office. That's pretty cool. Since taking office, the Trump-Pence administration has issued a rule to allow employers to deny birth control coverage to their employees, try to block women from having their care at Planned Parenthood, cut funding for teen pregnancy prevention programs, taken away protections for sexual assault survivors on campus, promoted abstinence-only programs, appointed officials who don't even believe women should use birth control, to overseeing our nation's program dedicated to affordable birth control and reproductive health care, repeatedly blocked young immigrant women from exercising their right to safe, legal abortion, even after courts ordered them to stop, ended a policy that releases pregnant women from ICE detention, and used the government office designed to protect against discrimination in order to give providers license to discriminate. And just recently, they're trying to erase trans narrative from the American narrative. This administration is pushing an ideological agenda to allow individuals to impose their personal religious views on others. These midterms are our chance. We are uniquely positioned in this moment to do just that, to take power back and to channel the energy we're seeing into victories at the ballot box. Our voices are the most powerful weapon we have. It is how we express our commitment to ourselves, to one another, and to building a better world. Thank you for using yours today. Now let's empower others to speak up and vote. They think they can take away our rights, control our bodies, that we don't know how to fight back. And to them I say, game on. Thank you.